Welcome to a NSRA game review. We're going to be reviewing The Last of Us Part 2. I'm Seth Cole, and I'm being joined here by Michael Norman, Mckinleyman93. Michael, say hi.
What's up, everybody?
So, a couple of disclaimers before we get started. Number one, the game came out on June 19th, so it's been out for probably about now going on 3 weeks. There are going to be spoilers in this review. So if you have not played the game or watched the game, do not watch this video. We don't want to spoil anything for you for two reasons. Number one, nobody wants to have a game spoiled. And number two, we don't really want to sway your opinions. We want you to formulate your own opinions on what you see when you either watch or play the game. The second thing is Michael and I have not played the game ourselves. Obviously, with the whole thing that understanding that Naughty Dog and The Last of Us have with PlayStation and Sony. It is exclusively out on PlayStations, and
Which I have.
he does. I don't, but he doesn't have the game. I don't have the game. The both of us actually are basing all of what we say based off the gameplay of YouTuber Jacksepticeye. That's where we've been watching the playthrough of it, and we both. I think you finished watching it about what, a week and a half ago. I just finished it.
I finished watching it before you started it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think I finished watching it about 3 days ago.
And
So
before we have any of those comments that say like, "Oh, you haven't played the game, so your opinions won't matter," it's we watched Jacksepticeye play it, and he gave probably the most thorough playthrough of the game in general.
true.
And we're talking, he went around collecting everything he possibly could. 2.5 hours roughly per episode he put out. So there probably isn't nothing about Last of Us Part 2 that we don't know just based off of this playthrough.
Yeah, correct. So, we're gonna be getting into our opinions of several different aspects of the game, storyline, mechanics, other things like that. But I think the first thing that we got to do real quickly here, Michael, because you and I we were talking about this last night before we decided to actually do a stream review of it, and I think one thing that we should touch on that I don't think we talked about last night was, Naughty Dog set the bar really, really high with The Last of Us, the first one. Did they set it too high for this game?
You would think that they did, and honestly, in my opinion, I feel like they set it high with the gameplay in general itself and the story. And the gameplay in The Last of Us Part 2 is pretty good. Graphics are good, the scenery is amazing, but the story, certain parts of the story are still kind of iffy, and I feel like it's okay and lives up to the hype that it is, but at the same time, the story, at least maybe the story's ending could use a little work.
Yeah, I mean, they actually, I think it was just announced today that The Last of Us Part 2 actually did get the Player's Choice Award for the month of June, so good for them. But there have been really a lot of mixed reactions to this game, Part 2. From what I've seen, most of it has been negative. I'm sure that there's a lot of positive reviews out there, but I don't know why it is. It always seems like the negative reviews always jump up to the forefront. But, overall, just based on what you saw here in this game, what was your initial reaction when the playthrough that Jacksepticeye did? What was the initial reaction you had for the game overall?
Well, the game overall, I mean, it was outstanding in my opinion. Like just the overall graphics of the game. I mean, it almost looked like you were watching a movie, and I'm talking like an actual real life, maybe not like a Sonic the Hedgehog type movie, with like real people, but kind of still looks a little cartoonish. But it really did catch my attention. The story at first, it seemed pretty good, and just looking at the game in general from start to finish, in my opinion, I feel like it's a really decent game.
Yeah,
Maybe not as great as the first one, but in storyline wise, but in general, it's a really really good game.
I agree with you. There's some things that maybe to me were on par, if maybe just a little bit off from the first game. But you mentioned the graphics. The graphics, unbelievable in this game. A lot of the details. I mean, Jacksepticeye is a sucker when it comes for games with good graphics, and a lot of the stuff that he pointed out was things that probably, if I were watching his playthrough and he hadn't said anything, I wouldn't have noticed. And then he describes the certain details that are going on. The reflections were, that's something that completely blew me away. In terms of the mirror reflections in puddles, anything like that, that they went to those minute details to actually make it as real as possible.
As well as blood delusion in water as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
The littlest and smallest details that you don't ever think would be in a video game were actually here.
Absolutely. So, for me, when initially the game was over, when I watched the playthrough and everything, my opinions have differed since then. But for me, I was left with a couple of really nagging questions that kind of made me kind of question the ending of the game. And we'll get to them a little bit further. So I was impressed, no doubt about it, with the game, but there were a couple of things where I thought, did you have to add this part in, or could you have maybe put this in there as well?
Is one of those? Is there a specific scene that I'm thinking of that's asking you that question of why was this needed in here?
I think I know the one you're thinking that I'm thinking, but that's not the one that I'm thinking. The one
I just suddenly got confused.
Yes, you. Well, okay. But no. If you want me to elaborate, I will. I just didn't really want to go into the next category ahead of time. But the one part that I really was confused about, and I brought this up last night too, was you have the situation where Ellie has found Abby that second time. The two of them are in that fight there in the ocean, and I thought that one or the other was going to finish it off. I thought that Ellie was going to finish it off. And she ends up then, letting Abby go. And I thought to myself, just based on the revenge agenda they've had Ellie have pretty much the entirety of this game, to have that last minute feeling of remorse just didn't seem to quite fit in with what we had been led up to believe the mental status of Ellie was. I really think that there would have been absolutely no reservations whatsoever that she would have finished the job off.
Now, my thing with this is as well, if Naughty Dog's plans on making a third part, then perhaps I could have seen Ellie finishing off Abby and then just sending what do they call them, scars, sending the scar, or maybe even caring for the scar that was left, or something interesting like that. But at the same time, if they didn't plan on making another one after this, if this was supposed to be the last one, then I don't see why Abby couldn't have finished Ellie off.
Yeah.
And I just want to take a brief moment, and I know you know about this too. I forget her name, the voice of Abby, but it is beyond bad, I guess, in Layton's terms, that the fact that she is receiving death threats because of her character killing off Joel.
Yeah,
that'd
be Laura Bailey.
Words. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a good memory. But yeah, that's just beyond words, and that's just really, really brings the level of gaming of a gamer community down when stuff like this happens.
Well, here's the thing that I don't understand with the mentality behind those death threats. Number one, Abby doesn't kill Ellie. So, if it were the fact that, the main character is taken out and everything, people are in an uproar because of the fact that Abby was the one that finished Ellie off, still doesn't in any way justify the death threats sent to the voice actor. But I can then understand people being upset at the character. But Abby doesn't, Abby isn't the one that is hunting after Ellie. We're going to get to in just a moment. The only one that Abby is hunting after is Joel, and she has a reason for it. She doesn't go after Ellie at all. Ellie is twice going out after Abby. So it's like, who's the bad guy in this situation?
I have no idea.
But let's get to that point that we were just touching on there. The whole thing that really sets off the entire storyline for this game, and that is the fact that Joel, who was the main character in The Last of Us, the first game, he ends up getting killed off here in the second game, about maybe 20 to 30 minutes into the playthrough. So a lot of people, I ended up watching this montage of Twitch streamers They were uninstalling the game. They were cutting up the discs. They were, just saying, I'm done. I'm not playing it anymore. I said this last night, and I completely hold to this. I think that was the thing that Naughty Dog had to do, because what other storyline to be... Naughty Dog and The Last of Us are known for these long games, long playthrough games. I mean, Jacksepticeye's took, I think, 13 episodes, but I think if he had just gone playing through the game itself and not gone for the extras and exploring, he still would have had about 9-10 episodes, because that's what The Last of Us is. It's a very long playthrough game. How in the world are you going to fit about 9-10 hours of playthrough into a storyline with Joel after you've already made a game back with the first Last of Us that went about that long already?
Exactly. And that's where I think the story came into play, like with how terrible it was. Not really terrible, but at least the ending wise was, because they just kind of running out of ideas, and a lot of us, and I agree with Jacksepticeye when it first started, when Abby finally reached Ellie, killing Jesse and then injuring what's his name?
Tommy?
Tommy. Sorry. Bad memory, people. But it's just it all of a sudden cuts to black and goes back in time, and all of a sudden you're now playing as Abby.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last thing people want to do.
It is. It really is. They mentioned the developers of The Last of Us had a press conference back in 2019, and they said, there's going to be things that people are not going to like about this game, but we've got the storyline. We like the storyline we've got. We're sticking to it regardless of whether fans like it or not, and whatever reactions they have, that's their reactions. We're staying with what we've got. There were at least 3 times that I can think of that the game forced you to do something that you didn't necessarily want to do. The first thing that I'm thinking of was you had to, of course, witness the death of Joel, and then realize, okay, well, he's gone. Now this is Ellie's story. The second thing, you just brought it up. The fact that after Abby has taken out Jesse, has injured Tommy, she's the one that's, we don't know why yet, but she's going after Ellie. Now you have to find out her backstory. You have to play as her. And then another scene, too, that I think was also important, and I believe you brought this up last night, was when you're in the theater there, you are actually Abby trying to defend yourself against Ellie. It's not the other way around where you're playing as Ellie the aggressor trying to get Abby. So there's at least 3, and there may be some other ones there, too, where the game is saying, you know what, this is what you've got to do. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Doesn't matter what your feelings are towards this character or not. You're forced to continue the storyline by being this character.
Yeah, and that's just, it's something that you wouldn't even really think about, but unfortunately it's just something that you got to do. It's that's kind of how gameplay works. Think about like The Walking Dead. Telltale's a little slightly different than this one, obviously, but just the decision making you have to do, how it affects your this Last of Us, it's not really tailored to how you play, because you can't just not do something, as they pretty much tell you that
Yep.
that you have to kill this person or kill these people or whatever. You can't just walk away. But you kill off their main characters. It's all about one specific person, and they don't cut to the bad people and tell their story and whatever, and stuff like that. It's they don't cut, like when Clementine was facing off against Carver, they didn't cut to Carver and just show his backstory from how it started to how he got there. It's just, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying this was bad. I mean, maybe it was good because the way they wanted that specific, like, hey, so this is really what happened to Abby. But I feel like they could have went about it in a different way. Like, the main story could have been about Ellie, and maybe as a DLC or something, they could have just put out Abby's side of the story.
Well, I think that another reason why they probably put that backstory in there as well, more often than not, when you play a game like this with the main character, you tend to get a bit of a, emotionally involved in that character. And I think, if we were just continuing with Ellie, just seeing her side of the story, then it's like, yep, we have a reason that we're going out here. Joel has been killed. We're going to go after these people that killed Joel. onwards. It's like it's a crusade thing. You're constantly thinking, I'm in the right here, taking out these people with the Ellie character. When you add in the fact that you have the backstory of Abby realizing that she went after Joel as revenge for her father, to me, it's like they have flip reversed your mind. Yeah, I mean, you may finish the game off still feeling that Ellie is the good person in all this situation, but then, you step back, you think about it, and you think, hold on, just a second. Maybe this person that I've been playing as, talking about Ellie for about, 75% of the game, maybe I'm playing as the protagonist, or the antagonist, I should say, in all of this situation. And I'm creating mayhem, and it's actually the people in the game that have to stop me.
But you also got to think too. How is How is Ellie supposed to know that who Abby is and why she's doing what she's doing?
Right. Well, you don't.
Because all Ellie knows is that she thinks that they killed Joel because Joel took her out of the hospital and prevented the cure from happening. Ellie doesn't know that what Joel actually did was kill Abby's father. And
right.
That's the reason why she's to kill him.
Right. What I'm saying, not necessarily the character, but I'm saying the people playing the character. Because they now know the backstory and everything. So that is, I think, a way for Naughty Dog to really, change your opinion, in essence, of the character you're playing as Ellie. Changes the fundamental of your thinking, not in the fact that, Ellie is good from start to finish. You start to then kind of question. I mean, I know that they throw in the whole thing that she's been going through PTSD with all of the trauma that's been going on, all the stuff that she's had to deal with, but it makes you stop and think. And that's really the sign of a good video game, is when you have a lot more questions when the game is over. A lot of things were answered in this game, and yet you still ended up finishing it out with more questions.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you first. Go ahead.
I was just going to jump onto another subject real quickly here. Was there anything that was in the game that you can specifically think of that you think maybe either could have been edited out, not really used, or, in some way could have been changed?
I mean, not off the top of my head. Everything seemed pretty good. I feel like maybe some of the fight scenes could have been more of a cutscene instead of an actual playing scene, but then again, that's just me.
So,
what about you?
Yeah, the one thing that I kind of had a little bit of a question about, because it didn't make a whole lot of sense. They spent so much time building up, and it didn't really have quite the payoff I was expecting, and that was this whole thing with the scars. The wolf situation, they did a pretty good job of that. They were constantly getting involved. You had all the different fight scenes with the wolf members and everything. But you kept walking around as Ellie, and you kept seeing the, let her light shine picture of this woman and everything. And, obviously you knew it was some kind of a religious cult or something like that. The only payoff we really got was when you were playing as the character Abby, and she gets captured. Well, this woman that all these paintings are put up, you only get to see her for maybe about, 3 minutes when she's about to execute Abby. And next thing you know, she's got a hatchet in her head. It's like, if this was supposed to be such a big faction that was going to be that much of an issue, why did we not get a little bit more dialogue between maybe Abby and this woman? She was there, and then she was gone. There wasn't a whole lot of payoff in terms of, Abby's meeting with the scars. Yes, they carried it on later on with Lev, but Lev was a person that had abdicated, if you will, from the scars. So I didn't really think there was a payoff there, or at least not a payoff that was worthy of what I know the payoffs in The Last of Us really are.
Yeah, especially with Abby killing Isaac as well. That was a little a backstabby thing. I guess that's why she left. She left the Wolf Clan, especially because pretty much all of her friends were dead at that point. So,
well, even with Isaac though, you at least had a little bit of a storyline with him where Owen and Abby go up, and he mentions the fact that they're going to be invading that island and taking out Scars and everything. But as far as the woman leader of the Scars, there really was nothing.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
Now, there's another thing that I wanted to quickly touch on here as well, and this is in regards to Ellie. I understand. I completely understand that if you have a person that's the main character of a game, more than likely you're going to have them survive from start to finish, or, in the case of The Walking Dead, you have them survive until up to the very end, something like that. But at least they're involved with the entirety of the gameplay. But there were too many scenarios, at least three that I can think of, where Ellie was in a situation where a lot of this was very real. Real scenarios that probably would have happened if there was a zombie apocalypse. But there were a couple of things I'm thinking, there's just no way physically that Ellie would have survived it. The one that jumps to my mind is when she gets caught in the trap when she's trying to find Abby in Santa Barbara. She gets caught in that trap and then she impales herself on the tree. We don't know how long she was hanging there, but I mean, if you're laying there bleeding out with a wound like that, first off, you're not going to have the strength to then be able, as soon as you get cut down, to lift up a machine gun and take out 2 people or 3 people. Secondly, you're probably not even going to survive that. So, just the kind of, and I put this in quotations, the invincibility of the character kind of took away a little bit from the realism of the game.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And the fact how she was pretending to struggle about getting bitten when she knows very well she could have just got bit and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Except for bleeding.
Yeah, I mean, they have a couple of times where you get caught. I think it was by a clicker or something, and they go for your neck and everything. I guess that's a way that you can die, but again, to your point, if you're immune and you get bit, why are you worrying about it?
I mean, yeah. I feel like the dialogue could have been better. Like when they were dragging her towards
if you're immune and you get bit, why are you worrying about it?
And they were like, "Oh, so see how tough you are if you get bit or whatever." And I was like, all she did was struggle until the last second, and then pretty much did what you said, just turned it around and got him bit, and then shot the other person in the leg. And she could have easily just like, "Fine, let him bite me. I'm immune anyways."
Yeah, yep, I agree. At least, you had the situation in The Walking Dead where Lee got bit, and then he ends up obviously either turning or you had Clementine shoot him, one or the other. The fact that they had him not survive that, even when he amputated the arm, he still didn't survive that. That brought the sense of realism. I think that was one little thing that they kind of missed in all of this. Because, your 2 main characters, everyone around them dies. Everybody around them dies except those characters. You ended up having Jesse die. You ended up having Tommy get injured. You have Joel, of course, die. If you go on to the Abby...
another thing, too. Not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It looked like Abby killed Tommy. Like, literally. Like he shot him right in the head. Shot him right in the head. And all of a sudden, what is he? He's missing an eye, I think, right? He's like missing an eye, I think, and he's still alive. It's like, really?
Yeah. If they had him, get shot maybe in the leg or something, or get hit unconscious, that's one thing. But yeah, I agree with you. I thought for certain he was dead, and then I see him later on arriving at Ellie and Dina's house, and it's like, he survived that? Really?
Yeah. I mean, even when I first saw it, I think even Jacksepticeye was like, what? Because... even if he did survive, because there have been cases, and I will say this, people have been shot in the head before and lived.
Yes.
But the only problem is getting shot in the head like that without immediate medical attention. I don't think you're going to survive that.
Yeah. The one thing that I will not forgive Naughty Dog for, and I don't care, how good the game was, and I think this was a big problem for Jacksepticeye too, was the incorporation of dogs. Oh my goodness. Every time it seems like when there's these type of games, they always have to incorporate dogs into the mix. And they did this in The Walking Dead. They've done this in so many horror games that I've played. You don't want to do it. And you feel dirty after you do it. And, Jacksepticeye, every time they did it, he didn't feel badly if he took a person out, but he felt really bad if he took a dog out. Again, I understand it's playing with your emotions kind of thing. You're inside your gut, you're thinking, is there some way I can pull this off without hurting the dog? And then you find out, no, there isn't, and then you feel like a horrible person. I just can't get past that whole thing of forgiving Naughty Dog for doing that.
I agree 100%.
Even the horse, when the horse blows up with a landmine, it's like, why? Why even bother to incorporate the animals? You know what? Just leave them out. Leave them out of it. But, again, it's
real. That's the only realistic part, because if something like this were to happen, of course we would all be riding horses again.
yes, yeah, that's true. Because I mean,
We'd be like
most of
the
the
Amish.
scenes you go through, the Amish,
No, I'm not. I'm not even joking.
little wooden buggies.
Mm-hmm.
So let's quickly talk about. This is another thing that I'm a little uncertain about, and I think you have more of a weigh in on this than I do, and that's the monsters that you encounter. Now, I'm trying to remember back to The Last of Us 1. I know for certain you had runners. I know for certain we had clickers. I don't remember if we had bloaters. I don't.
Yeah, we
did we have bloaters?
Yeah, that's all. That's the reason why it was on there. It was bloaters. I think they were more rare to find in the first one, but if it was almost like a boss battle if you found one. But in The Last of Us 2, we have bloaters, and then the other kind, which is a little bit more, which is the fourth. I believe it's the fourth kind, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what they're called.
God, see, we even struggled with this when we were talking.
We
before
did.
this.
We did. I can kind of remember the name, the letter that they begin with, but even remembering the letter, I can't think of it. I know that the final one were the stalkers. Oh man, shamblers. Shamblers were the
yep.
other ones, which were kind of like bloaters. I actually think the shamblers were the lesser version of the bloaters, just based off of the weapons that Jacksepticeye had to use with those two different types of zombies. But did you think that they incorporated enough different types of the zombies? Do you think that there were maybe less zombie encounters than there should have been, or too many zombie encounters throughout the game?
No, it's just the right amount. That's how it would be in real life if an apocalypse like this broke out. It's just like in The Walking Dead. There's a never-ending supply of zombies, and it's the same here. People end up getting bit. But what's the worst part is, and this is something I learned from MatPat, I don't know if you would even classify them as zombies, as more like infected regular. I guess that's why they call them infected instead of zombies.
Yeah.
Because from what MatPat said, the fungal infection takes over the brain, and you're basically a passenger along with the ride. The infection takes control of your body, but you're still just there inside of it with no control of your body.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, I think a way that it really kind of hit home to let you know that situation. Trying to remember, I think it was when Ellie was near the wolf headquarters. You come across I think it was a clicker, a decomposed clicker, and there's the rib cage. It still was a human. It wasn't a zombie. So it kind of indicates to you, as you just expanded on the fact.
There was also a note that Ellie found. I think it was Ellie. It was either Ellie or Abby found. It was of somebody writing like a chapter book or whatever. And slowly but surely, as it got towards the end, she lost control and couldn't think straight. Couldn't keep the words proper.
All the writing was like different capital letters and lowercase letters. I do remember that.
Kind of like the SpongeBob meme.
Yeah, in a way. That's another thing. Just real quickly, the notes that were left around. Again, just in the sense of realism.
Seemed like everybody had a safe.
Yes. Well, everybody had a safe. Everybody had a note. It's like everybody walked around the apocalypse with a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper. And when they knew the end was coming, and when they knew the end was coming, they decided to write down their life story or what happened. Yes, it does continue on the storyline. It gives you an idea, of what was going on. It kind of added into, certain parts of the game, certain places you had to encounter. Like that one point, what was it? Was it Boris? I think the archer guy. He locked a whole bunch of his friends into this one place with an infected, and later on, you go to get into this safe. You open up the door, and there's about 10 zombies there, and then you find out, oh, those are the people that Boris locked in there. Yeah, it did continue some of that storyline and some of the encounters that you had, but it just kind of seemed like, really? Everybody had paper and pens with them to be able to write down their life story, so when someone came along, they'd be able to read about it. That just,
by the way,
if you think about it too much, then it doesn't make sense.
By the way, remember that big old monster everyone formed together, the monster that Abby comes across?
Yep.
It has a name.
Oh, it does.
Yep, it's called the Rat King.
The Rat King.
Yep.
I didn't know that the Nutcracker had entered into The Last of Us Part 2, but
It
okay.
says, here, I'll read it out for you. It
Okay.
says, named for the rare Rat King phenomena that has taken place in the animal kingdom. The Rat King is the stuff of nightmares. Multiple infected, including at least one bloater and one stalker, have fused together, resulting into a multiple-armed, multiple-mouth abomination. As such, it is not so much a stage of infected as it is a horrifying, unnatural. Uh, I can't say that last word.
All right, so I think the fact that it's unnatural would help lend credence to the fact that we only encounter one of them during the game rather than
That
multiple.
that word right there.
Uh, Anathema.
Yeah, anathema.
Yeah, I mean, we only encounter the one, and that's down, what is it, in the bottom floor of the hospital when Abby's going to get medicine, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. She was climbing out of the
Yeah, it's down the
climbing out of the
quarantine. Yeah,
ambulance.
the
Yep.
quarantine wards. You know, as you said, just the fact that it's unnatural, I think, lends credence to the fact we only encountered one of them. We didn't encounter multiple ones during the course of the game. But the one thing that I did like with the stalkers was you couldn't see them on your stealth mode. Everything
Yeah.
else you could, but you couldn't see them on your stealth mode. The one thing that I do
Well,
have a little bit of an issue though with uh, was you didn't have as much of an opportunity. I believe this was something that you could do quite a bit back in The Last of Us. I'm trying to cast my memory back because I mean, when did that thing come out? Like late 2018, I think it's been, or maybe it was 2017.
what? No. It was a lot longer than that. I thought
Was
it
it?
was like 2013.
I didn't know it was that long. Um,
Whenever the PlayStation, it was right about the time right before the PlayStation 4 came out.
Yeah, I'll look it up. But while I'm looking it up, I mean,
I'll do it.
okay. The one thing that I noticed was you didn't have as much of an opportunity to make your enemies, whether it be infected or whether it be wolf agent people or the scars, encounter each other. I remember quite a few instances
Yep.
back in The Last of Us where
June 14th, 2013 for
oh,
the
okay.
first one.
All right, so 7 years ago. But I remember, you would throw a brick, you'd throw a bottle, you'd see, enemies of two different types. You'd throw a bottle or a brick in the same location. The two of them would go, two different groups would go to check it out. Next thing you know, they're fighting each other. I think there was maybe one part, possibly, and maybe I'm thinking of an incorrect area, where you were able to do that. There was one spot where I looked at a situation Jacksepticeye was in, like, oh, look at that. You can pit the two different things against each other. Guess what? There was a wall between the two of them. So I think that was something that they could have actually put in there. Let one group or the other be your assist in getting rid of the other faction, and then be able to progress in the game instead of having to deal with one group and then having to deal with the other group to move on.
Absolutely. And that's another thing too. It should have been like you said, they should have been able to go like he should have been able to at least what's the word I'm looking for here? He should have been able to at least draw them out and then into the other people.
Yeah. Yep. I think that that's one feature they had in the first game that they really should have incorporated into the second game, and they didn't. Obviously, Michael and I are just giving our opinions here on the game. It doesn't mean that we're right. It doesn't mean that we're wrong. It's merely an opinion. If anybody wants to weigh in their opinions as well, feel free to leave it in the comments once this stream ends. Or, if you're watching us here live, feel free to jump into the discussion as well. The last thing we got to touch on here, Michael, we touched on this a little bit last night when we were talking. We'll expand a little bit more on it here today. What is next? I mean, is there going to be, first of all, a Last of Us Part 3? Do we think that Naughty Dog has alienated enough of their fans that there's not going to be enough interest for them to be able to put out a Part 3? If so, what storyline are we looking at? And would they put out a DLC like they did before to bridge between Part 2 and Part 3?
I don't even know. I feel like they shouldn't do another one. But at the same time, with this being a single player driven game, it's every possibility with the PS5 coming out that they could do one for PS5 and it be the last one. So I feel like if they're gonna do a part three, then there doesn't need to be a bridge between them. But if there's not going to be another one, then at least we need closure instead of just having Ellie walk off into a forest.
Yeah, yep, definitely agree. We were talking last night with another guy, Raphael Leduc, and he said the fact that Naughty Dog is no longer doing the Uncharted series, it gives them more time to be able to dedicate towards putting out a part three, should they so choose. In terms of the DLC and everything, I was looking, trying to figure out, would they maybe continue on with Abby's story again? Would maybe they would, maybe have a DLC with Ellie continuing on from her leaving that house, going out into the forest, as you talked about, to kind of lead us into a new storyline? Or would they maybe do the backstory with Lev? I mean, as I said, we didn't get a whole lot of background in terms of what goes down in the Scars faction. Maybe that was on purpose, with the fact of, if they give away too much, if they are planning on maybe putting out a DLC with Lev as the character you play, then all of a sudden all those questions you have about the Scars, they would get answered in his storyline.
Yeah, I agree.
And as far as, if they come out with a part three, if they continue on with Ellie, do you think there's enough material out there still for them to be able to put together as comprehensive a game as they have the past two times with Ellie as the main character? Or do you think it's going to be the same situation that we seem to see in these type of zombie apocalyptic type games, where your main character from the last game, they're gone in some circumstances, and now you're going to have this as your new character?
Yeah, it's all going to be on based on what kind of story that they can think of. What are they going to have now? Could they have a return to the Scars, or the Wolves? Now that Isaac's gone, who's going to take over for that? Yeah, sure. The last thing we saw was the Isaacs. Wow, the Wolves and the Scars fighting on the island. But, or better yet, the people that took Abby. I forgot what they were called.
Yeah, they gave them names, and I can't off the top of my head remember what they were. It was, again, it was another faction that you just kind of saw them for a brief moment and then they were gone.
Yeah, I feel like that could easily have set up something for another game if that's what they wanted. But I don't know. It's really tough to tell if they even could.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna actually quickly see if I can find out what they're called here. But yeah, I mean, the things that people didn't like about the game, story-wise, were things that I actually really liked. Let me see. The Rattlers. Rattlers, that's what they were called. Santa Barbara Rattlers. They were the ones that were like the last faction that we met up with in Santa Barbara. But, obviously, to me, I feel when you're in games as comprehensive as this, you and I talked about our initial reaction and everything after the game was over. When there's these type of things, what you have to do, you can't just spur of the moment. If something happens, make a decision. If the game ends, make a decision on how it was. You have to kind of step back, take a day or two, soak it all in, figure it all out, and then formulate your opinion. And, maybe a lot of the people that are out there that didn't like this game, that had problems with it, maybe that was the case, that they, looked at it objectively, waited a little bit before they formulated an opinion. Maybe they made the opinion already and then found out 2 days later, their opinion's unchanged. But you just can't really, in the heat of the moment, you cannot really make a decision on how the game is. And I think, really, the thing that stands out to me was the fact all this negativity coming out, and then I find out today that the Player's Choice Award for June goes to this game. That says to me that a lot of people did actually take the time afterwards to think about it and realized, you know what, actually, makes a lot of sense. I'm on board with it.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, as some of my my closing thoughts is one thing for sure. I actually love the little guitar scenes that they have in the game.
Yes.
I think that's really cool, especially Ellie singing "Take on Me."
Yeah, I'm the little breaks like that. little breaks like that, people think, well, come on, I gotta keep playing the game and everything. But it breaks up the monotony a little bit and allows you an opportunity to relax, kind of maybe catch your breath to move on to the next part. I completely agree. That little scene, I thought that the scene with Joel taking her to the museum, while some people would think, this isn't action packed, it isn't fast paced, it was very slow paced. I thought that was a tremendous cut scene. The cut scene where you had Ellie and Joel going to the music store. Yes, it ended in an action scene with them fighting the zombies, but just the interaction there I thought was a tremendous job. The cut scenes I thought were amazing. There were very few, if any, cut scenes that I thought to myself, why are they even there? The one that I thought was so sneaky that I don't know if anybody even caught on to it was just before Ellie and Joel go to that music shop. You have her out there with Tommy sniping those infected out on the hill. Did you realize what was going on there?
No.
They were setting you up with shooting at a distance and gauging the gravity of the bullet on that distance. They were setting you up for when you got the bow and arrow, the crossbow, because that is the same fundamentals, the same physics that you would have to deal with an arrow. So what that literally was a bow and arrow tutorial for later on when you got the weapon. And they snuck that in there. They also snuck in the throwing of a bottle and a brick with the snowball fight early in the game. I loved the fact that they gave you a tutorial without you knowing they were giving you a tutorial. It was all in the gameplay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's always a good thing, especially when you don't know that it's a tutorial.
Yeah. Real quickly, too, we're going to be ending this off pretty soon, but also a thing that Jacksepticeye talked about that we didn't touch on was the capabilities of the AI. I mean, you spent most of the game when you were Ellie with the AI of either Dina or on occasion you had Jesse. When you were Abby, then, you were obviously by yourself to start with, but then you ended up having the AI assistance of Lev. And really, in terms of a lot of the stuff that went on, the AI was actually a help to you. And I thought that Naughty Dog did a great job of having you have an AI sidekick that actually was able to bring something to the table and actually assist you through your gameplay.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I think it's pretty awesome.
So, again, these are our opinions. If you want to agree, if you want to disagree, if you want to weigh your opinion, feel free to let us know in the comments here and everything. But that's going to end off our stream here for the review of The Last of Us Part 2. I mean, just real quickly here, Michael, we won't even base it against The Last of Us, the original one. But, as a game overall, if you were a game rater, maybe, trying to do like a Rotten Tomatoes type thing, even though I don't think they do anything for video games, what would you, out of a scale of 10, rate this game, just based off of everything that we talked about here?
I would have to say either a 7.5 to 8.
Yep, I'd be right on an 8 as well, I think. The graphics, obviously, shoot it up there, up into the latter half of 10. But just a couple of little things that irked me, which maybe the DLC or Part 3 will be the remedy of. Who knows? But I put it at a solid 8 as well. I think that based off how high they set the bar in the first one, they did a good job of at least equaling it. I don't know if they bettered it or not, but I think they did a great job of at least putting it at an equal pace of the first one. So, everybody else, let us know what you thought in terms of if you were to rate this game on a scale of 10. Let us know what your opinion would be on that. Again, if you haven't played the game, I hope you haven't watched this. If you haven't watched a playthrough of this, I hope you haven't watched this, because we don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the game has been out for 3 weeks, and there have been a number of YouTubers, if you can't get the game yourself, that have done playthroughs, so hopefully you watched one and can formulate your opinion based off of that. But, Michael, a great idea doing this review and everything, and appreciate you joining me for it.
Absolutely, no problem. It was always fun. So it's fun to do this.
Yeah, and if anybody's got like any other games that they want us to, maybe watch playthrough of, for me it'll be watching playthroughs of, because I don't do console gaming really. I do PC gaming, so unless it's a PC game, I more than likely am not going to be able to play it. I would watch a playthrough of it. If you want us to do like more game reviews, do watch throughs and whatnot, and then give you, if I can talk, give you our opinions. Feel free to let us know in the comments below. But again, Michael, thank you for joining me, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this stream/video, and we will see you guys next time. Bye bye.